Hello everyone, this is Godzilla1, and today I'm doing a toy review on Titan's Return Deluxe Class Hardhead, which is probably one of the most recent reviews I've done in proportion to its release date because it literally just showed up at my Walmart this week. Which is kind of cool, though unfortunately they didn't have any Voyagers or Leader Class ones, which kind of sucks because I really want Power Master Prime. But regardless, here he is. He is actually really cool. But before we look directly at him, we are going to look at the collector card that comes with him, which is actually really nice quality. It's like cardboard or something. But really nice picture. I love these collector cards. They just look so cool. But yeah, pretty cool. On the back we have a tech spec, which actually matches up pretty well with the G1 tech spec we got. Which basically when you pop the head on, he would get these 3 lines in his chest that would show his stats, and he actually matches up pretty well. Really high strength, really low speed, really decent, well, not really low intelligence, but fairly low. And really high firepower, which makes sense because he has a gigantic cannon. And of course his Titan Master Furos increasing all of them. I like these tech specs, they're really awesome. But anyway, now let's look at the figure, which is probably why you clicked on this review. Which, yeah, really good detail on this guy. Like all these armor platings. I kind of wish the tank treads had been painted in, but they're actually really nicely detailed, even though you're probably never going to see them all that much. And really nice detail in the front. Nicely painted cockpit there, which he has 2 cockpits, but we'll get into that in a minute. Nicely done cockpit, which is really nicely detailed, nicely done. Nice armor plating. I love the armor plating. It gives him a really heavy look. And the giant cannon that is probably about as big as your average Deluxe Class Transformer. Once more, nice armor plating. I really like the design of it. And something that impresses me is there's even detail underneath the cannon, which you're never really going to see. So I'm actually happy they put some detailing down there. So yeah, pretty nice interpretation of the original G1 figure's alt mode. I looked up pictures, I didn't have the figure unfortunately. But yeah, it does a pretty good job. He rolls, not very well, but he does roll. He just has these caster wheels. Now this is also weird. This wheel's red, but this wheel's orange. These red caster wheels are literally the only red plastic on the entire figure. That is odd. But yeah, he does roll, and for added playability, his cannon does move up. So he can shoot pretty decently. Like, he's got pretty good range on that cannon. And if you want to, you can lift it up on this armature, and it can rotate however you want. So it looks kind of silly, and it can pop out if you do that. But it pops right back in, and you can lower it down so it looks a little more logical. But yeah, not really something you want to do in this mode, but it does work if you want the option. And he does also come with his gun, which is actually a pretty nice interpretation of his G1 gun. It's the same basic shape, but of course much more heavily detailed. I think this is a rifle or a machine gun, I'm not sure which. But it has that stock like his original G1 figure had from what pictures I was able to find. Yeah, I've only got pictures to base it off of, but this does look very similar to what I found, just in shape, not detailing. But yeah, nice gun. It can store on the figure in vehicle mode right up there, which looks kind of ridiculous because he's got a cannon on top of a cannon. I wish it could peg in somewhere else, like right here or something, but I can see why I couldn't. Though one thing I did find out is this little part right here, I don't think this is intentional, but this little hole right here actually does a fairly decent job of pegging into these little little tabs that are on him. So you can do that, which looks a bit better, but still not that good. But then again, vehicle mounting and weapon mountings in vehicle mode normally don't look that good. Now for the meat of the playability, we have his Titan Master, who is in this opening cockpit. And I actually do want to draw attention to this. They even molded in little handles for him to hold on to, as best as he can. I like that. That's a good feature. And actually, if we take him out here, I can give you a better look at that. They've actually got a lot of little molding in there, which is really nice. I'm actually really happy about this. They didn't have to mold that in that well, but they did, and it is awesome. Now we have his little Titan Master Furos, who basically the entire gimmick of Titan's Return is the Titan Masters, which are basically headmasters. For those of you that do not know what headmasters are, they were a, I think, Japanese series that was based off the original G1 cartoon. May or may not be in the same continuity because Japan didn't get the Transformers a movie for a while, so they kind of did their own thing for a bit, and long, complicated thing is long and complicated. But basically the idea is the Autobots and some of the Decepticons were partnered with little robots called headmasters that could turn into a head for the robot. Now, yes, you're probably thinking that sounds kind of silly, but it actually made sense because it meant the little robot sometimes had a big non-sapient drone they could fuse with, or that might have been in another media, and basically get a big body. But in the case where both had a consciousness, they basically combined their brain power to have double the processing power, and I think increased power as well. And the Titan Masters are basically the exact same thing, but combined with the prospect of minicons from Armada. Basically, Furos here, he was originally called Duros, I don't know why they changed his name. Probably stupid copyright reasons. Basically, when he combines with Hardhead or any other headmasters, according to the back of the box, he gives them regenerative ability. But he has a pretty nice detail. He kind of looks like a mini version of Hardhead. That's normally what they do with these. Nicely painted face. I'm glad they painted his face. Of course, no attempt to hide the head on his back, but eh. As for articulation, he has a ball-jointed head, which is really nice, gets him a lot of expression, and lets him do a little more in the cockpit than just stare forward. He has ball-jointed arms, which don't go out that far, but do get a decent range up and back, and are probably leagues less fragile than the G1 Headmasters were. Like, completely seriously, the G1 Headmasters were notoriously fragile for their arms. So it's nice that these will probably last a lot longer. He even has detail on the side of his arm. As for leg articulation, he can do that, he can do that, that's about it. But he's very, very, very tiny. Like, honestly, like, extremely tiny. Like, here is a Deluxe Class Transformers Prime toy, tiny. But as for what he can do, he actually has a few things he can do other than sit in the cockpit, which is nice. He has these little posts all on him, hard-headed in 4 different places. He can stand right like that on any of them and kind of pose a little, have a little bit of posability or playability, kind of making him a little bit of a little mini playset. The bigger ones have a lot more, naturally. But as for the actual big thing he can do, you can open up this opening on the cannon, put him in sitting position, and actually even this has a little bit of detail on the inside of it, which I really like. That's actually really cool. But basically you want to sit him down in there. If you do it right, he's fairly secure in there and won't just fly out. And basically now he can man the gun. And what this is mainly for is, if you have one of the leader class figures, you can take this off and use it as a turret of some sort. In this case, it does kind of work as a turret, because you can put him up on there and have him man it, which I think looks kind of cool, actually. Or you can put this up here, and this is supposedly a Target Master mode. Some of the others have a lot better Target Master modes than this, where you can have another robot hold him. Which, yeah, not bad. That's kind of cool. I'm all for extra playability that makes this figure have actually a lot more it can do than you would normally expect from from a Deluxe. Anyway, let's move on to transformation. First you want to go under here, flip that up. You don't have to, but it helps. Next you want to pop the leg off of their tabs, which are right under there. And then swing that up. Then you want to grab the leg, swing it down, snap it in, and pop out the leg. Second verse, same as the first, as Imgo likes to say. I like Imgo, he's a cool toy reviewer. And there you have his legs all done, his entire lower body all done. Next is the part I really like, where you take the front of the tank, flip it forward, and it snaps into place down here. And also the orange wheels actually end up sticking through there. Then you want to bend this whole thing back, well no, actually first you want to pop these out of their peg holes, though they're so loose, and that's actually one of my complaints with this figure, is these are a pain to tab in there when you're going from robot to vehicle mode. And they don't really like to stay in. But it's not a huge deal, but it is annoying. But then you want to fold this down, and then fold this down again, making sure this does not pop up, and tab it into his butt. Like, literally tabs right into his butt there. Next, and lastly, we want to raise up my camera so I can actually show you what's going on. Then you want to pull the arms down, which I'll give you a closer look at. You just pull them out on a double hinge, and then flip out the fists from inside the front of the tank treads, and then you grab his headmaster, and well, he's a headmaster. If you've seen anything about these, you know exactly what he does. Well, Titan Master, but he's still simply a headmaster. Flip that down, and you have a head, which you peg in right here. I think it was head on, is what they said in the Japanese version, or in the original Headmaster cartoon. And we'll give him his gun and make him a lefty because he already has a giant freaking gun on his right shoulder. And there we have Deluxe Class Hardhead in robot mode, and I love this figure. Like, he just has this nice heroic build to him, and I love it. I mean, there's not a lot of new details. Basically, his crotch plate here is about the only new detail we've got, that in his head. Which, really nice head, actually. Like, that's not a bad interpretation of the G1 Hardhead's head. I rather like it. And, of course, doesn't actually look that much like a tiny robot turned into his head, either, which is nice. Basically no real other details, though, because most of this you saw in robot mode. He has feet. He has hands. That's about all that's new, but he does have really nice proportions. He looks very bulky and powerful, which I like. And as for scaling, here we have a Transformers Prime figure. He's actually taller than Transformer Prime Wheeljack. Yeah, by a fair bit. So he's actually not that small of a figure for Deluxe. And he is really cool. I love this guy. Like, he's just a really awesome figure. And doesn't really have that much kibble except for the giant cockpit sticking off his back, but I think the G1 toy had that too, and there's really nothing they could do about it. And you can put the cannon up over his shoulder, but this is where I have to point out a flaw with my particular version of the figure. Yours will most likely not have a problem with this. But if I pop this off, you see this cannon is supposed to be able to flip up all the way over his shoulder and lay flush, because these things fit into this here, and well, mine's misassembled, so it can't do that. It's stuck like that. Which kinda sucks, but at the same time, I can still work with it. Like, I can still make this work fairly well. But keep that in mind, yours will most likely not have that. I've seen other reviews, that's probably just a problem with mine. But be aware that apparently can happen, but mine's the only one I've seen with it, so you probably will be fine, and it should probably lay flush against the shoulder. Anyway, on to articulation. He has a ball-jointed shoulder, which is kind of hindered going this way, but he's got a separate joint up. I mean, it is kind of hindered going that way on its own, but it does have a separate joint to allow for that range. Pretty decent range all around. He has a bicep swivel, which is nice to have. He technically has a double-jointed elbow because it bends here and has a ratchet up there, but you really can't get more than 90 degrees no matter how you use that. Like, you can get a tiny bit more than 90 degrees, but it really isn't built to permit an actual double joint. But still, 90 degrees is fairly nice for a Deluxe, and it's slightly ratcheted. This one's not so ratcheted, but still nice to have. He has a wrist swivel, and his wrist can also move in like that if you desire it. The head is on a ball joint, because, well, the Titan Master's head is on a ball joint, so he can get a fairly nice range. Mine's a little loose, but he can still get a decent amount range, which is why it doesn't bug me, because he can still line his head up with that cannon. So it's okay. He has ball-jointed legs with great range that way. He can do the splits. He can go that far back. So great range in the hips. He has a thigh swivel, which is really tight on mine. That's another thing. This guy has really tight joints, except for the head. I can shake him and he doesn't go anywhere, which I really like. He has a 90-degree knee bend. And lastly, his ankles can do this. And you can also rotate the cannon however you please. So yeah, really nice articulation. Basically everything I could want for in a figure's articulation, except maybe a double-jointed elbow. That's really the only thing that comes to mind that he doesn't have. And maybe a waist joint, but given how he transforms, that's simply not possible. And one other thing that really impresses me, and really has impressed me, is just how stable he is. Just swing him up like that, and he holds it. He can do a high kick with absolutely no problem, and holds it pretty securely. Like, I'm shaking it, and he doesn't want to fall over that easily. I love that. This guy can get in so many good poses, and he stays in those poses. This is just a really good figure. I just wish mine didn't have that weird factory manufacturing error there. So you can get this guy in some great poses, and he's kind of molded to a stance, which is nice because he's got that very action hero build to him. So yeah, you can get this guy in some fantastic poses, and he stays in them. So yeah, I really like this guy. I am really liking this guy so much. So, what are my final opinions on Titan's Return Deluxe Class Hardhead? He is fantastic. This guy is just a fantastic figure. Even with mine's factory error, I love this guy. There's only really two problems I have, that being, of course, these having trouble pegging in, and the defective cannon. That's honestly the only two real problems I have with this guy. And, you know, you could complain about the backpack, but I don't think you really need to. He just can get in so many good poses, and he stays in those poses. He looks great. He looks like the G1 figure, only modernized. And the Takara version is probably going to have a more show-accurate color scheme, too, from what I've seen. So, yeah, this guy's just awesome. If you see this guy and have the slightest bit of interest in him, I really recommend him. Just beware, you might have to worry about a factory error, but from what I've seen, that's not very common at all, so you really shouldn't have to be that concerned with it. So, anyway, this has been Godzilla Wolf 1 with Titan's Return Deluxe Class Hardhead. And basically I give him an A. Buy this guy if you want him at all and have the funds to do so. He is a fantastic toy. Anyway, see you guys next time. This has been Godzilla Wolf 1. Like, comment, and subscribe. Bye! I still don't have a catchphrase.